Welcome back and thanks for joining me once again. My name is Matt. I'm here on the Bonnie Lee. We're currently situated at Munyon Island, just north of the Blue Heron Bridge and Riviera Beach. It's a nice, private, secluded little island, only accessible by boat. They've got some little trails and plenty of beachfront so you can bring your dogs and family, have a nice time out here and bring that grill while you're at it. So I am continuing the requirements for an uninspected passenger vessel. This is part 2 of life-saving equipment, and we're going to be talking about some additional safety gear and some things to consider while you're reading the CFR. So stick around, I've got a lot to cover. Let's get after it. Okay, so we had already talked about part 1 of life-saving equipment, which includes your PFD requirements. Now, obviously I'm wearing an inflatable Mustang vest right now as I'm out. I've got my electronic kill switch as well, my man overboard, so if I end up in the water, it's gonna kill the motors. And if I don't get back on the vessel within about 5 minutes of this activating, it's going to automatically send a distress message out to my shore-based contacts that gives them my GPS location and the fact that I'm in the water. But also I've got some other safety gear I will touch on later. But for now, we're going to be talking about a life ring buoy. So everybody pretty much knows when you're a recreational vessel, you have to have that throwable device, which is generally one of those blue or white seat cushions, and that's perfectly fine for your UPV. Now, we're going to talk about a couple things when it comes to the CFRs. When you're reading the codes of federal regulations, you really have to know what you're reading and how it applies to you, because there are different regulations for a recreational vessel, an uninspected passenger vessel, and an inspected passenger vessel. So for example, right now the Bonnie Lee is a recreational vessel. She's not commercial whatsoever, not licensed as such, so it's just a regular recreational vessel as we sit. And I do have one of those throwable life cushions up here overhead. It's got to be immediately accessible, not readily accessible like a life jacket. So if the event of a man overboard, or you see somebody that's overboard, you want to be able to grab that and toss it overboard to whoever's in the water. Now here's something that's really important. Just last week there was a capsized vessel out of the Lake Worth Inlet.
Here's video of Sea Tow Palm Beach towing the boat that capsized Saturday afternoon. Captain John Snow of Sea Tow Palm Beach says it took him about 15 minutes to get to this area just south of the jetty at the Palm Beach Inlet.
I seen the vessel that was capsized. It was capsized. I pulled up on scene. There was another vessel there helping the people out of water.
Snow says when he arrived, 9 children were in the water and 3 adults on the capsized boat were still on board. However, he says 2 women from the boat jumped off when it started sinking. They're all expected to be okay.
It was a bunch of chaos and everybody trying to assist everybody out of the water, because we were floating closest to the rocks, you know, trying to get everybody out so nobody else gets hurt.
Right now, Snow is reflecting on the death of a man just trying to step up and help.
I'm super sorry for the family. You know, somebody trying to save a life ended up losing theirs, and I feel bad, you know, that it happens. You know, my heart goes out to him and his family.
Snow estimates the capsized boat to be about 20 feet, and he says the waves were about 6 feet high when the boat started taking on water. According to Coast Guard guidelines, boats of that size should only have 8 people on board.
The vessel had 9 passengers on board, or 12 passengers on board, I'm sorry, 3 adults, 9 children. They all went into the water, and there was unfortunately a boater. I don't know all the details, I haven't released them yet, but a boater was helping assist the man overboard. All 12 passengers were in the water, and subsequently this person lost their life. So I stress safety up and down and sideways, because you just never know when the moment's going to come that either you have to try to self-rescue or you are assisting somebody else in their rescue, and you want to make sure you have all the right gear. So immediately available means I can open this zipper up, I can pull my throw rope down, I can take my throwable out and toss that right overboard, and it is attached to a lifeline, and we're going to talk about a lifeline a little bit more. So when we're looking at, this is page 32 of the requirements for an uninspected passenger vessel. It's the workbook that I'm going through with you. It's specifically for the uninspected passenger vessels, but I'm going to go through some of the confusion too. So the rule is UPVs, uninspected passenger vessels that are 26 feet or longer, are required to have at least one Coast Guard approved orange or white throwable life ring buoy with a minimum outside diameter, your diameter going from one side to the other, of 20 inches. And there is a special notation that if you're on an international voyage, so if you're going to the Bahamas, the Caribbean, wherever, if you're not sticking to US waters, you do have to have a orange life ring. So clearly, as a 25.5-foot vessel, I am not required by the CFRs to carry a life ring, whether it's orange or white at all. If I was about 6 inches longer, then this would be a requirement. Now here's the confusing part on the life-saving equipment. When you go through the CFRs, if you're an inspected vessel, the regulations change a little bit. So on an inspected vessel, that means you can carry more than 6 passengers, or you have to have, the boat has to have a certificate of inspection, and you play by a little bit tighter rules with the Coast Guard. They do say that all inspected vessels, regardless of the length, are required to carry a life ring. And the bigger the vessel, you may be required to carry 2, 3, or 4 of these, either in a 20-inch or up to a 24-inch life ring, depending on the classification of your vessel. So there are some confusing things. You can't just look at a CFR and go, yep, that's it, I'm done. You have to really pay attention. Are you looking at the CFRs relating to an uninspected vessel, an inspected vessel that carries passengers or doesn't carry passengers? You know, so there's a lot of things that you have to look at to make sure that you're getting it nailed down so you don't get yourself into trouble later on down the road. Okay, so even though the Bonnie Lee as a UPV, uninspected passenger vessel, is not required to carry a life ring, I am going to go ahead and carry a life ring anyways. It's going to be one step above what's required for this boat, and I don't think there's anything wrong with going above and beyond when it comes to safety. So this life ring right here is US Coast Guard approved. It is 20 inches in diameter, orange in color, just in case I ever take the boat way offshore into international waters. It's not very likely. It's a little bit too small of a boat for most of those runs. But we're missing a couple things on this. If I'm going to use it and put it on my boat, even though I'm not required, I'm going to use it in accordance with what the CFRs state. So for the boats that are required to have this, the CFR states that you still have to have the retro reflective material, the Solus tape. We talked about that when we went over the life jackets, and I'm going to have to add Solus tape all the way around this ring in several different spots. And again, if it's meant to be thrown overboard, they have the requirements on how much of that Solus tape is required. And then with this one, so this one's got the ropes that are sewn into it so that if you throw it to somebody, they can grab it. But this doesn't do me much good to just throw this overboard, because what's it attached to? So when you do have the life ring, so the CFR states you have to have one, but then you have to look deeper into the CFRs and go, okay, well, let's look at the CFRs specifically to a life ring. And that's where we find out that it has to have that Solus tape. And a lifeline that needs to be attached. They also go through what constitutes a lifeline. What diameter of line is it? what color it is. It's got to be buoyant. It's got to be a certain length, which is over 60 feet. So they do stipulate all that. For this one, I'm going to have to add my boat name and FL numbers on here, so that way if Coast Guard ever finds this and they don't find the boat, they'll know what boat this belongs to. And if you are an inspected vessel, you're going to get a number that replaces your bow numbers, your inspected numbers, and that would go on here in its place. So as far as the life ring or the lifeline goes, I don't have one specific for this life ring buoy just yet. I am going to go ahead and grab an additional lifeline. I have one, but I'm going to get a different one that meets the CFRs, you know, the correct diameter, the correct color. It's got a float and the correct length, so that way I have something tethered to the life ring. Oh, also, because this is meant to be thrown overboard, there is another CFR you have to follow. I am going to have to affix one of the safety lights to this as well, that automatically turns on when it comes in contact with the water. I have something kind of like that right here on my ditch bag. This is a little strobe safety light right here. When this comes into contact with water, this is going to light up and blink. And then, or I might add one like this. This is a little bit longer, like a pencil, a little bit thicker. I can manually activate this, or it does have the little sensors on the side, so when water comes into contact with those, this is going to strobe up nice and bright. We'll see if you can see that, and it does the SOS strobe flash on that, and it is super bright at nighttime. I can push it again. It's going to be solid on, kind of like a flashlight. That makes it handy if you guys are all kind of grouped together in the water, heaven forbid, and you have a little bit of a candle light for you. So because that life ring is designed to be thrown overboard, I am going to have to attach a safety light of some sort, and more than likely, since there's space on here, I'll go ahead and tuck one of the little safety whistles in just for good measure. It's not required though. So let's talk about a lifeline. So this is going to be my throw style lifeline. It's not going to be what's connected to the life ring. Originally I thought I wanted to do that way, connect this to the life ring to throw overboard, but I'm going to do a little bit different. This is just going to be a standalone throw bag, and we'll try to demonstrate that here in a minute. So this lifeline right here is from Mustang Survival. Like I said before, I do like Mustang products. I just didn't care for their Type 1 offshore vest. So Mustang puts this out, this rope, it just folds real nice and easy into the bag. I'm gonna hold on to the loose end and then throw the whole bag over towards the person that's in the water, and then I can retrieve them back. This all stays together. I also added the Solus reflective tape to this bag. It doesn't come with it, but I went ahead and added the Solus tape to that along with the safety light, because anything that's designed to be thrown overboard should have a safety light if you're going offshore and that's your route areas. Let's do a little demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and get the camera set up, and we will go ahead and we'll test that lifeline for a man overboard situation. All right, we're out here at the back of the boat. This is that Mustang Survival lifeline. So we're going to throw this, but we're going to do a couple little things that we should talk about here. So when you're doing a lifeline throw, you don't want to wrap this around your wrist or anything like that that could, you know, end up getting snagged and pull you overboard. So what's recommended is you can either tie this off to a cleat or somewhere else, but what we're going to do is we're actually just going to step on it, so that way we don't lose the bitter end of this. And if somebody is overboard, we're going to open the bag up here and give her a toss. We're going to say somebody's out there, and now we can retrieve that all back in, which we're going to do right now. So you can see it's still pulling out all the excess line that's in that bag. The bag's not moving. So we get to the end, and there we go. Person's hanging on, and we're able to retrieve them in. Now notice how this rope This rope might actually constitute as a lifeline. It's the right diameter, it's the right braking strength. I think the braking strength had to be something like 1,200 pounds. It is a contrasting color to the water, and as you can see, it floats. So I very well may go ahead and buy some of this this line here. This is an 8-plate rope, and use that for my lifeline that gets attached to the life ring. And in that event, like that accident that took place here last week, and as you can see here, the light is now flashing because water made contact, so we can go ahead and turn that off now manually. And of course, rinse the bag and put it all the way to dry. But one of the lessons that I took away from that accident that took place with 12 people in the water is one life ring and, you know, maybe a couple extra life jackets. That wasn't going to be enough for people in the water. So I'm going to have, you know, this life ring or this lifeline, the life ring buoy throwable, plus all the additional life jackets. I've got the EPIRB and PLB, which we'll be talking about as well, and then all the, you know, the additional life jackets that are not the type 1. So I'm going to have probably enough gear to go ahead and pull 12 people out of the water, assuming they don't have any sort of PFDs on themselves. So I mean, it's just smart to be safe, and if you have the room for it, utilize the space. But I understand everybody's got to outfit their boats according to what they're doing and what their space constraints are. So I'm going to go ahead and get this rinsed off and tuck back in, and we'll talk about that EPIRB and PLB as well. And the other thing I want to talk about is the EPIRB, or Emergency Position Indicating Radio Beacon, which is this guy right here. Now, according to the rules for a uninspected passenger vessel, you are not required to carry an EPIRB. Now, when you become inspected, you're carrying more than 6 passengers. That changes the game. And I think there is a rule that even up a UPV, if you're going a certain distance, I don't know if it's 12 miles offshore or 3 miles off, whatever the case may be, if you're going offshore, then you're required to have an EPIRB. I could be wrong on that, but I am going to go ahead and I have the EPIRB for my boat. I also have a PLB, a personal locating beacon. That is the one that stays inside my Mustang vest, which is also one of the reasons why I wear this all the time when I'm on the boat, because if I go overboard and I have nothing else with me, if I can't grab my ditch bag or I can't grab any additional life or anything like that, then at least I have my inflatable vest that I can manually inflate with my mouth, and tucked inside the vest is my PLB, personal locating beacon. This is the exact same thing as this EPIRB, except for this one does not automatically activate in the water. I do have to manually activate this one. It has a little antenna, so once I'm in the water, get myself unzipped, I got to take the antenna out, and we want this radio antenna pointing straight up. So it does go like this if you have it clipped on and you're in the water vertically, but if you're laying back, you want to have it angled towards the sky. And then of course the manual activation. There is a test button on here. I'm going to go ahead and push that. It says directions for test. Press T for 2 seconds to perform a self-test. So 1,000, 2, 1,000. Green light just flashed. It'll go through its little test procedure, let you know everything is working properly. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up, put it back in my vest. Now, one of the things you have to understand about EPIRBs is they need to be registered. It doesn't do you very much good to go buy an EPIRB kit and not have it registered with the proper people. So when you are a recreational vessel and you decide to outfit your boat with an EPIRB, you can register the ID number that comes with each of these with either like CTO or Boat US, and they'll register those recreationally. When you go commercial, the EPIRBs do have to be registered with NOAA, like your NOAA Weather Forecast Center. They're the ones that control the fisheries and have a lot more of the capabilities to identify commercial vessels. So I went ahead, even though I'm recreational on this boat, I went ahead and registered my EPIRB and PLB along with my MMSI number for the radio with NOAA. They give you a tag that goes on each of these devices. So I had to register this one separate from the EPIRB. It's got the ID of the EPIRB printed on here, the expiration date. So about every 2 years or so, you do have to go in and re-register that, even though the EPIRB itself is good for about 10 years from the date of manufacture. They do put the expiration dates on here. So for example, this one was manufactured September of 2021 and it expires September of 2031. These do not have serviceable batteries in them. So the manufacturers do tell you how to test these and that you should be testing them. But if you ever do have to actually activate it in a real life situation, they say that this does need to be replaced. I'm not sure that you can actually even send these in and have them, you know, put a new battery in or anything like that. But they do say for sure, once this is activated, you have to replace it. So one of the things to note too is, on this vessel I don't have it. If you are required to carry an EPIRB, so I am not, but if you are required to carry an EPIRB, you do have to have this in an automatic hydrostatic release carrier. So I'll show you a picture of how I've got mine mounted and where that's at right now. It's just down inside the head, hanging up on the wall, nice and simple. But generally speaking, if you're going to have an EPIRB, you want this to be mounted in a place on your vessel, assuming the vessel is either going to sink or roll over, that when this is in its hydrostatic release bracket, that it can release and float free of your vessel. It wouldn't do me any good to have it, you know, mounted up here somewhere, because if the vessel rolled over and that hydrostatic release went off, it's going to get all tangled up inside the boat and it's never going to float to the surface to transmit the signal. So that's something to keep in mind. This one does not have, on my boat, does not have the automatic release. Keep it down in the head compartment right around the corner for a quick grab. But this device itself will automatically activate, or I can manually activate it. So definitely something to keep in mind. This comes from ACR. It's one of the bigger brands out there. I bought the whole kit, which is in this, what I'm going to use as my ditch bag, and we'll cover the contents of that on the next episode. So for now, life-saving equipment part 2, we talked about the life ring buoy and the EPIRBs. That was page 32 of the requirements for an uninspected passenger vessel. As always, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Stick around, I do have a part 3 of this video. And of course, if you like the content I'm bringing you, please hit that like button or that subscribe button. It gives me an idea that you guys enjoy the content that I'm bringing you, and I always love to see your comments on there as well. I always respond to all of them. And if you have any suggestions for how I can improve, please let me know. Or if there's specific content that you want to see, let me know that as well, and I will do my best to get that out to you. So that's it for today. I've got a lot more to come. I got to get after it.